Venture Forth Campaign 2 officially started with episode 1 dropping last Wednesday. If you're following my short form videos, you know that I watched the first episode and had some thoughts that I shared in 2 shorts. But now we're here to make a proper review of the episode. This is the review of episode 1 of Campaign 2, and I have a lot to say, so let's get right into it. First of all, if you don't know me, welcome. My name is Oren, and I am a software engineer by day and a complete nerd by night. I'm currently working my way through some series and making content about them just because I love it, and this campaign is one of them. So without further ado, let's begin. So we begin with the production value and first impressions. If you've ever watched any YouTube D&D campaign, you know that they could vary in production value and still be amazing. If the story works, it hooks you up, it's great, and you keep on watching. But Venture Forth elevated it one step further. They have a full opening theme for the campaign, like a song that starts at the beginning of the episode. It's a bit like the opening to a TV show, but it's a YouTube campaign. And it also doesn't look amateurish, it looks professional. So that kind of thing already kind of elevates the feel of the episode, letting you know that as a viewer, you are entering into something that was well crafted. The layout also is very standard. You don't have any special thing. You have the DM and you have the players, and it's very Critical Role-esque. Well, you have multiple people in one camera because they're sitting at a table and not like a Zoom call where each one has their own computer. But they also know to zoom in when they want to give the focus to a player that's speaking. So it does feel dynamic in the way that the editing, the post-processing of the episode was like, okay, we have this main screen, but we also have close-ups when we want to actually go and watch closely what a player is doing. In terms of audio quality, the audio quality is amazing. I could listen to this and it sounded great. It sounded clear, it sounded crisp, and it sounded like something you would actually put as a podcast. I watched it on YouTube itself, but I feel like it could work as a podcast as well. Another aspect of the production value that I feel compelled to mention here is the character art. Each one of the players, and I think even the DM himself, have character art for this campaign. And I gotta say, I really like the designs. They feel so immersive. Like I can actually connect the descriptions that the players give to what I'm seeing on the screen. And I feel like if you're a podcast listener, you intend to listen to this on Spotify or wherever you consume your podcast, you should probably at least watch one episode so you can experience the character art, and then you'll have that in your head, and then you can continue listening on a podcast. And kudos to the artist that made those because they look awesome. So now that I've given you kind of like my first impressions about the production value and about the packaging of the episode, let's talk about the DM vibe. Right out of the bat, I want to say that Seth is amazing. He wasn't just facilitating a story. It felt like he was excited and enthusiastic to tell this story with the people around the table. It also flowed very beautifully. Like the story was unfolding and there wasn't like, okay, wait, we need to calculate this roll and what happened here. It was not fast-paced, but it was flowing. It was fun to listen to, wasn't too rigid in terms of like rules and let's see what can you roll and how we solve this problem that we're having with what you try to do. Nothing like that. It felt great to just listen to the story unfold. And yes, sometimes there were ability checks that needed to happen, and they just happened, especially in the pit fighting scene, because without revealing any spoilers, but the pit fighting was kind of a thing that happened throughout this entire episode. So a roll was necessary, but it felt fun. It felt like a game instead of like, this is a mechanic that we need to use to tell the story. No, it felt like part of the episode as a fun mechanic, as a fun game that they were playing. So I think kudos to Seth in this episode for telling the story in such a great way. That said, I'm also going to throw in there that I want to see what happens when the scene is darker, when the scene is actually going to be heavier. We're not there yet. This is the first episode, but we probably will get to some kind of a scene like that in future episodes. And I'm pretty intrigued and curious to see how Seth will tell that kind of story around the table. The reason I'm saying this is because I don't have experience with Venture Forth previous campaigns. I did always see them in my periphery, but I was always focused on either Dimension 20 or some other campaign that I was watching at the time, and it didn't felt like I had the bandwidth to check out their previous material. But now that this campaign just started, I'm feeling invested. And discovering the DM's style during this campaign will be a treat. So the DM is one aspect of this episode, but now let's talk about the players. First of all, my first impression of each one of these players is that they know how to tell a story in D&D. I don't know if they have a lot of experience. I think 3 players around this table participated in future Venture Forth campaigns, so they probably have experience being D&D players, but I don't know the other 2. I didn't see them before, so maybe they were in previous campaigns too. But other than that, I feel like they either had a very successful session 0 that they knew how to gel with each other, or these characters are pre-existing and they know how to play with each other somehow. In addition, each one of these people feels like their own person, like the characters. They have their own quirks and personalities, and they don't feel, to me at least, they don't feel like Temu D&D characters, if that makes sense. Okay, so that's all I can say in general terms. But I am going to dive into the story a bit, so skip to this timestamp if you don't want spoilers. Okay, so the story so far is that we are in a tavern, I think. It does have a bar, and it does have a pit fighting ring. From what I understand so far, we have 2 characters that are participating in the pit fighting, and we have supporting characters that are in the crowd and employed in the place. So far, it feels like Ilya is driving the plot forward. She was looking for her father, and she kind of spied on him and found that he was looking for something that was supposed to be in the tavern, but it's not there anymore, or it's not there yet. And that put a highlight on things that are unfolding in the background. Maybe deals are happening, maybe some other shady business. And of course, we have the ending where a lot of insects come out of the ground, out of the sand in the pit fighting ring. And I'm going to talk about this in the next section, in the non-spoiler part of the video. But what I want to say here is that, like, using insects to come out of the ground doesn't feel like a natural phenomenon. It feels like some kind of a spell or a curse or whatever. Or it could be these are actual insects that were brought here to this place. I know that the world this is happening in, the Freywood, has been described as this kind of like dark place. So maybe this is like a natural thing that just happens here from time to time. But yeah, I'm new to this world, and I'm pretty excited to see what happens next. But yeah, we're going to talk about the ending now from the player-DM dynamic next. So let's do that. Okay, so let's talk about this ending without spoiling it. I feel like this ending was so sudden. What I can say is that it is very masterful to have this ambience of joy in the room and then flip it like that into horror. And that's all I'm going to say about it. I feel like this was so sudden, surprising, and a little bit terrifying too. And yeah, if you want to know what I'm talking about, you should either watch the episode or go back to the spoiler area. But I really encourage you to watch the episode. I actually think publicly this episode goes out tomorrow morning, in Eastern time. So you might want to save this video and watch it after you watch the episode. But other than that, yeah, that's all I had to say about episode 1, campaign 2, venture forth. If you've watched this episode, I would love to know what you thought about it in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.